Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Chris Kidd with chriskidd.com. That's Kidd. He's also a regular contributor on the Price of Business show on every week. He is also a contributor at usdatareview.com. He's a money guy, and he's kind of a coach, helping people navigate through financial issues, and a consultant, and love the work he does, and love the stories that we've been doing now. Great stories of athletes and entertainers and others, significant individuals who have made a difference in the lives of others and continue to do so beyond their professional sporting career. Today is no exception, with Adonal Foyle as our guest, and talking about his book and his interesting story and much, much more. A big young man on a very small island in the Caribbean who went on to a great professional career and a post-professional career after MBA. Chris, why don't you start off with your next question for our guests?
Well, also just realized we need to give his website. We'll do it again, but Foyle31.com is Adonal Foyle's website if you want to go and check that out. But we'll get back to our interview here. And Adonal, how did you learn some of these things? I mean, I know you said that you had kind of studied and gone through different interviews and stuff with former professional athletes and stuff. But what are some things that you picked up just growing up? Because it seems like you kind of had some kind of a working knowledge about handling money in general that maybe others didn't. Where'd you learn some of this?
I think it comes from just not having any.
Wow.
I think, growing up, there was a few things, coming from a background where money was not always readily available to us. So, my grandmother did extraordinary things. I remember I always tell the story that I get so upset because growing up in the Caribbean, my grandmother had this habit. She will cook, and every time she cooked, she basically will feed almost the entire village. We'll have nothing to cook, and somehow she'll manage to feed everybody who come by. And normally this would be a really great thing, but I would be so upset because I knew that the more people that came by, that I'm going to get the littlest piece of chicken. I was not going to get the big piece of meat. And I really had to. I asked her one day. I got really frustrated. Like, why am I not getting a big piece of meat? Why you keep giving it away? She's like, well, part of it is you never know what you might need tomorrow, and you give today so that somebody might help you out tomorrow. So coming from that background, I think for me, I remember the first conversation I had with my financial team, and it was a very simple one. I was like, I don't know anything that you know, and you don't know a lot about basketball. I can dunk over you, and you can make a run financial circles around me. But I hope really at the end of my career that I would have learned something, that you would have done your job right and teach me something. I always thought of myself as a student first, and I think that's something we miss. I think sometimes there's this machismo that we don't know everything going into a situation, and instead of really trying to learn and be a student of, we tend to kind of pretend that we know more than we do. So I have never been afraid to say, I do not know what you're talking about. You have to explain it again. And that's how my team was set up. I'm fortunate enough to have a stepdad, obviously, that is an economic professor at Colgate, and has at least had knowledge of that world and has been able to teach me at our dinner table, and really use the last 20-plus years to really learn about how to approach finances. And he had been able to give me his knowledge with my working knowledge in terms of my hunger to learn. I think those that inform really the way that I view financial decisions.
By the way, 31 was your number as an athlete, and that's Foyle, Foyle, 31.com. I am curious, what did your family do for a living before you went into professional sports?
Well, my grandparents, I grew up, we walk in the we had a little plot of land, and we plant peanuts, we plant corn, we plant everything. Basically, in the Caribbean, anything you ate at that time came from the fields. And later on, my mom, and Uncle started basically baking stuff at home, and they went out and sold those stuff to the locals, in our neighborhood. They soon got a little shop where they sold a few things that people wanted, and before long, by the time I came to the league, my uncle had started his own restaurant, and my mom was a part of that, and then they started selling basically anything you could imagine. So they started off with selling food, then it went off to selling basically baked goods, and then they really, that's how they took care of us and took care of our family.
Well, I like what you said about not pretending like you already know more than you do, and having a hunger to learn. And it reminds me of what my mentor used to say. He'd say, "Pride will keep you broke." So to always stay hungry to learn, especially from somebody who has a bigger pool of knowledge than you do in a certain area. One of the other things that you'd mentioned earlier was when you first started playing basketball, you said you were lousy, and then you became an NBA player. So that's it ties in a lot with money and stuff. There's a lot of people who just say, kind of like you mentioned earlier, well, I just don't know about that, so I'm just I'm not going to be good at it. That's just the life I was given. Kind of talk about that. It's like, when did you didn't just wake up one morning and you were a great NBA player. What kind of work did you have to put in from?
Right, and I think that's the big issue, right? Is that there is this amazing really existence between how athletes don't make the connection between how they view their life and their life mission. So I made this point in the book about, professional athletes could be considered PhD in basketball. They have come from the most unbelievable background, and they have been able to make it to the top and the pinnacle of a sport. In a global sport, they are 450 players, for example, in professional basketball. They have been able to make that rise. So they are considered geniuses in that space. And one of the things we talk about is, like, how do you use the discipline that you have been able to use in basketball or in professional sports and really translate it into other aspects of your life? And that using those kind of skills as a way to teach you how to go to the next level. And that making that connection is usually the way you get into an entertainer or a basketball player's head or a football player, because they know the sacrifices they made for this sport, and that at the end of it all, if you had to walk away and had nothing to show for it, I mean that is really tragic in a way. And I think when you put it in that kind of stark contrast, you tend to get they tend to understand it a lot better.
Yeah, very, very good. We've got to wrap it up here with that. One more time, though, I do want to give the website, Foyle31, that's Foyle 31.com. Chris Kidd, on the other hand, you can reach him at chriskidd.com. Chris, why don't you wrap up the segment for us?
Yeah, great interview, great 2 segments. And winning the money game, lessons learned from the financial fouls of pro athletes. Sounds like a very good read. I would definitely recommend picking it up. I'm looking forward to reading it myself.
Yeah, and it seems like tons of people who are not athletes or entertainers could benefit from it. I think about anyone who's in fields where there's constant influx of money and yet go long periods between monies, like people in real estate. Man, I would think people in real estate game would really benefit. But there's just a ton of other fields where they could benefit from this kind of information. Thanks so much for sharing your time and your thoughts with us today.
I'm coming back to hang out with you guys some more. I'm really enjoying this.
Well, good. Well,
that sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. When we come back, much more for you. Hey, before I go, real quickly with Chris here. I'm going to hold you just for a minute after the break. We're going to talk a little bit about a big event coming up on Halloween that we want to keep promoting right here on The Price of Business.